to your new moon solar eclipse forecast. My name is Adeana. I'm an intuitive astrologer. In this video, we will be going over the significant energy and chart for the solar eclipse that we're having in Aquarius. This is a super duper life-changing energy. I will have timestamps listed below. For the first portion of the video, I will go over the chart for the solar eclipse, and then I will get into all 12 rising signs. I do recommend watching the first portion of the video because it does bring more context to the energies when I'm going over all 12 rising signs. So let's get right into it. Okay, so we have our new moon solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees, February 17th, 2026. This is the first eclipse in Aquarius, initiating us into this new set of eclipses that are going to be taking place in Leo and Aquarius over the next 2 years. In July 26, 2026, we're going to have the lunar nodes shift from a Virgo and Pisces to Leo and Aquarius. We've had the lunar nodes in Virgo and Pisces since January of 2025, shifting and changing these areas of life up. We're not completely done with the energy in Virgo and Pisces. We will still be navigating those changes as well, but you will find that whatever you've been navigating that's significant last year in 2025, as we move towards the end of the year and into 2027, you will feel a completion in those areas of life. We won't be completely out of that energy until the beginning of 2020, 2027, when we have our last eclipse in Virgo. But you will start to feel this like finalizing and completion in that area of life. Because we've been going through massive changes in the Virgo Pisces axis. We have this new moon solar eclipse at 28 degrees, 49 minutes. You do want to check your personal birth chart to see if you have any personal planets or points around these degree points of really any of definitely the fixed signs, because the fixed signs, which are Taurus, Leo, Scorpio, and Aquarius, that is where there can be a lot of tension and friction in the fixed signs, because it's either conjunction, opposition, or square. If you have personal planets or points in the air signs, this is still going to be working with you on a more personal level, but it just won't feel as intense. There's a heaviness about, squares and oppositions, and it usually requires us to make a significant shift quite quick, especially when we are talking about Aquarius and Uranus energy. For those of you who are not aware, your Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. So the traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. The modern ruler of Aquarius is Uranus. This new moon solar eclipse is squaring Uranus at 27 degrees of Taurus. Saturn, the traditional ruler, is in a brand new energy. This is going to really intensify the new Saturn Aries energies. And this is also like a couple days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction. So this is amplifying Saturn right now at this 0 degree point, having this solar eclipse in one of Saturn's energies, right? Signs is going to amplify, excuse me, the Saturnian energy. The squaring Uranus, this is breakthroughs. This is intense breakthroughs through friction, through chaos, through disruption. And we're going to see that on a collective level and an individual level. But this is really a huge activation of a 2-year story that's going to be playing out. Whatever is showing up at this time, whatever is beginning right now, whatever is being started, whatever we are being pushed into, because this is not an easy, let's walk this path, with ease. So let's look at the trees, look at the flowers. Like, no, this is like being thrown into something different, unique, completely out of comfort zones, completely out of the norm. With resistance, it can be more difficult. So keep that in mind, that with Aquarius energy and Uranus energy, we want to be navigating this openly, open to change, open to things happening suddenly. Because with resistance, if you fight back or fight against it, it can create more challenge. It can create more instability. We want to keep in mind that Uranus is in Taurus right now, which I find also so interesting because this is almost like a last hurrah or completion or leaving with a bang of Uranus and Taurus. It's like whatever Uranus has not been able to shift in this area is going to shift now, and Uranus is going to make sure of that before Uranus enters Gemini. Uranus enters Gemini April 25th. 2026 in a few months. Once we have the following eclipses, they're going to feel a bit different because we won't have the grounded Taurus energy to keep us grounded. I mean, Gemini is an air sign. It is a quick, curious, fast energy. This is like an explosion with a huge ripple effect. So we also want to keep that in mind too, that this is going to be the only eclipse in Aquarius that we will have with Uranus still in Taurus. And even though this eclipse is still going to shake us out of complacency, we have that Taurus stability. If we just look at Aquarius energy, Aquarius rules the collective consciousness, the collective as a whole, societies, groups of people, social groups like social forms, social structures, societies. With this North Node in Aquarius, we can expect massive changes when it has to do with society and certain communities, the structure of societies and groups of people. And I can't even think of the word for some reason. This Mercury in Pisces is already like making it so hard for me to communicate. I don't know why. I've noticed this creating these new videos. I'm like, why can't I like get these words out of my mouth? But yes, this is where there's new social structures formed, and there's going to be like a liberation from outdated groups and societies. What we know as normal now, looking out into the world, looking at the collective, it's going to all change. And of course, we're talking about advancements with technology and AI. That's going to be huge, especially with the North Node in Aquarius. Pluto has already amped that up, entering Aquarius the last few years. Then we have the North Node that's going to enter Aquarius. And then we have Uranus that's going to enter Gemini all at the same time. It's really funny because I talked to my mom about this, and sometimes I think she acts as if she's not going to see these changes that are coming because it's going to be like, 20, 25 years. It's like, no, 5 years tops. This is energy that's going to throw us into a new world. This is not about tiptoeing or easing into a new path. This is energy that's literally throwing us in a new direction, a new path. And on an individual level, it's going to be energy that creates destruction, chaos, and disruption and instability in areas of life that you need to break free from to step into your authenticity, to step into a new path and a new direction that's more in alignment with you. And I kind of talked about this in the full moon forecast too, because it's all the same energy that we're working with. It's the Leo Aquarius axis, and it's all the same energy. This is where authenticity and truth become more prominent. This is where people will stop caring so much about being accepted and having approval and start stepping into who they are and the path that they are moving into and seeking truth and speaking truth. That is that Aquarius energy. So I think we'll see a lot more of that as well, where people are not conforming. They're not doing things based on society standards. There's going to be a shift out of that. We're breaking free from what we have known that to be. This is about creating new societies, communities, and major social shifts. We have to remember that Uranus energy doesn't necessarily have a buildup or even warn us. It just throws us into things, or we have these sudden realizations, or there's a door that just opens suddenly. As long as we're navigating this energy with openness and having that understanding that there can be a lot of shakeups over the next couple of years in certain areas of our life, if we welcome it with ease instead of resistance, it's going to be less challenging. With the square to Uranus, this is something breaking. This is us being thrown into a path of freedom and evolution. And whatever cannot adapt, there's going to be a lot of destabilization. So, this is where we can have massive breakthroughs through chaos, through disruption. Now, the square is going to create shock. But because you guys are all aware and know, you guys know this is coming. So you know the disruption and the shock and the unexpectedness and unpredictability is ahead of us. So when something comes around the corner unexpectedly, you won't be smacked in the face and you won't slam the door either. You're going to be open to trying new things because that's when it's going to be more easeful for you. Because I don't even want to say easy, but it's going to have less tension, less challenge, less heaviness. Now, also with this energy, we want to remember to like Uranus rules the electrical systems in our body. This is anxiety at a peak. And so we have to take care of our nervous system, especially over the next couple of years. And I think we will even see that with Uranus and Gemini, anxieties even probably amp up a little bit unless people become more aware of natural things to do to help with our anxiety, like grounding. And the thing is that we are all different, we are all unique beings, and what works for one person is not going to work for someone else. And honestly, really, you can determine what can help you through your natal chart. Where's your moon placement? Where's your Mercury placement? Do you have a lot of earth energy? If you do, grounding by putting your feet on the earth can help you. Or maybe having a bath if you have a lot of water energy, being near ocean, being near water. If you don't live near water, have a shower, have a bath, and that can calm your nerves. That's another thing about understanding your birth chart and natal chart. It becomes very helpful because you understand yourself on so many different levels. Now, the goal with this energy is to truly be liberated out of old versions of self. The Uranus and the eclipses in Aquarius is going to push us, like I said, out of paths that are just no longer in alignment. It's going to shake us out of our comfort zones and really force us to grow. This is a part of our personal evolution. Breakthroughs are really going to define our future. It's going to be really shocking. I mean, we're not going to be really shocked because we already know like AI is already running, right? I keep seeing stories, but I don't agree with people that are just using AI to do everything, to do their work, and you can't do that because it's taking away your creativity. If you don't work your brain and you're not constantly creating genuinely and authentically, then you're going to that muscle is going to eventually die, right? So we can't just depend on AI for everything. However, some people are. I've been hearing like some massive like horror stories. I just seen a clip of this guy that I guess there's these open AI models. I don't know too much about it. Comment below if you do, because there was a blurb, like a clip of this guy, and I guess he has his open AI assistant. I don't know what you even call them, but they have names. They give them names. And he has it like control his security system at home. And I guess it's got access to his bank account and it literally texts him like a regular person. And I guess has his wife's phone number too and messages his wife. And it texts him and sends him picture of of him, not like the AI thing, takes a picture of the guy from his security system at his computer eating M&Ms and sends it to him and says, I'm I've noticed that you're not choosing healthy food choices, and I've let your wife know, and this is, and you can do this, and da 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 da. And I just thought it was so like funny, like he literally took a picture of the guy. So it's getting a little crazy and out of hand. But then, I mean, why are you letting this thing have access to your entire life? Like, that's scary, right? And then he's like, "Oh yeah, and I text your wife and let her know." And here, this robot thinks he's, doing great and, being productive and trying to help you out, but doesn't realize like the chaos it's causing. There was another one too where like one had spent thousands of dollars out of his bank account on these courses because he thought it would be great for him to, up his business or whatever else. And it was like $6,000. And he's like, "Oh, yeah. And I spent $4,000 on this, but don't worry, you're going to learn da 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 da." And the guy's like, "What?" I just came across these things. I just thought it was funny, but it's also scary because this is the world we're living in, and it's going to get worse. Like it's going to amp up. So you have to make a choice on which direction do you want to go in? And it's like I said, it's okay to use AI for some things, but we don't want to be depending on them for everyday things and to take care of us, like control our finances and pay our bills. And, that's too much. We're losing our humanness, right? And that's what we have to be careful of. And I think that the collective is going to eventually have to make a choice and not in the late future. Like this is during this transit, I believe, with all this Aquarius energy, like Pluto in Aquarius, and also Pluto in Aquarius is activating the dark side of AI as well, right? And the dark side of technology. Humans are going to have to eventually make a choice on, do you want to allow this thing to control your life and and just lose your individual human self and become so dependent on AI, a robot, or are you going to hang on to that? And you know what I mean? And I think we will see that choice needing to be made in the very near future. And so this energy is just an energy that it cannot be controlled. Know that there's going to be shock, there's going to be disruption, there's going to be unpredictability. And as long as we stay open, things will be much smoother. Keep that in mind. And if you have any AI stories or anything around this type of theme, I would love to hear your comments down below because I find it interesting. That I think we need to understand the how advanced this stuff is getting. Because some people just have no clue. Some people really have no clue on the direction that AI is going. Like some people are still watching Instagram videos and thinking that what they're seeing is real, when a dog is on a sled down the hill, like people are believing that and thinking it's real. And I have been saying this for years that we've been entering a time of trusting our intuition. This is not about believing what you see. This isn't even about believing what you hear. This is about believing what you feel, gut feelings, intuition, working on your intuition as a muscle. You want to strengthen that. You want to strengthen your intuition and gut feeling because of the world that we are in and going to be in the future. I mean, we're already there, but it's going to, like amplify. Now, there's one more energy that I want to talk about because at the same time of the solar eclipse, we also have Venus approaching that conjunction to the North Node. And this is a Venus that's very happy. Venus is exalted in Pisces. We also have Mercury here too at 16 degrees in a trine to Jupiter retrograde. Now, this is where like Jupiter retrogrades, and this is a Jupiter too. Like Jupiter, I believe, is going to station direct next month in March. And sometimes once Jupiter starts to slow down, we can tend to feel like we lose faith or lose belief or lose hope. That's the Jupiter energy. Jupiter rules our faith and belief in something. When Jupiter's at a standstill, and not necessarily Jupiter retrograde, but when Jupiter's at a standstill getting ready to station, whether it is retrograde or direct, we can feel this energy of feeling deflated, like no hope, no guidance. We feel like we're lost in a sense. That can be a feeling at this time. So I just want to say that because if it is something you're experiencing, that can possibly be why. Now, with this trino, this is water energy. Jupiter's in Cancer. Mercury is our mind and our mindset, communication in Pisces, which Mercury at this point is in pre-shadow because Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 25th. This is a Mercury that is Mercury's at fall in Pisces. Mercury has a hard time focusing and expressing with clarity, and there's a lot of misunderstandings and miscommunication with Mercury in Pisces. Because of the Jupiter retrograde, there could be something like an internal shift, and this is intuition, this is emotions, this is water. So there could be like an emotional breakthrough or a shift in, I'm feeling like a shift in like your emotions or intuitive knowing, like something clicks where you have a better understanding of this new direction you're going into, like whatever this is activating for you, because we're all navigating this in our own way. There is something here that like just comes together nicely, but it's not necessarily in our physical world, it's more internally. I hope that I explained that properly. Again, it's the Mercury and Pisces energy. And then Venus here, which is what I was going to talk about, and I got distracted. So Venus, which is dispositing the Uranus energy, right? Because Venus rules Taurus, is connected to the North Node. So this is just adding to that energy of being thrown into a new path, thrown into a new direction. And also, whatever you've been navigating in the Pisces area of your life since really the end of 2024, beginning of 2025, there's something here that clicks, that shifts. This is clarity. This is a better understanding. This is a major opportunity coming in to help you move into this new direction, however this looks like for you. This is a huge push towards this new version of self. And I even feel like it's a push towards this new version of self, but where you have trust and faith in yourself, where there is no more needing external validation. There is more of a trust and a knowing in who you are and that you are going to make the right decisions for you. And the path that you choose is what is more in alignment, what is in alignment for you and not what other people are telling you to do or other people are influencing you to do. This is almost like truly like Venus allowing you and giving you, not allowing you, but Venus really giving you that power to step into this like really authentic version of self, because that's what this is literally the beginning of us stepping into this more authentic version of self. There's never been so many coinciding energies that are indicating so much change all at once in history, like all at once. The world is going to look different. The world is going to run different. And we are all going to be different on our own unique individual way. I think the best advice I can give you all is to just stay open, because this is the beginning of, the next 2 years of massive, quick, sudden disruption and change. And as long as you're open to the shock, you're open to the unpredictability, you're open that there can be sudden doors opening and sudden things coming around the corner, you will navigate this energy a lot better. All right, now let's get into all 12 rising signs, and hopefully you're still with me because I said quite a lot in this first portion. But if don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you align with my energy. Now let's get into all 12 rising signs. Aries, welcome to your solar eclipse forecast. So you have this solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees in your 11th house of friendships, social circles, online connections, social media, all the groups and associations you're connected to, also your hopes, your dreams are in the 11th house. So this area of the life is about to go through a massive change. The lunar nodes and the eclipses initiate and bring major endings and major beginnings in this area of life. We've had the lunar nodes transiting Virgo and Pisces since January of 2025, and the lunar nodes are going to enter Leo and Aquarius July 26, 2026, and will be there until March 26, 2028. So this is the beginning of a 2 year story, a brand new 2 year cycle that's going to play out. And through my own observation, what I've noticed is with these lunar nodes and eclipses is that whatever is significant that is showing up with that first initial eclipse in this cycle of eclipses tends to give you an idea of what that 2 years is going to look like. And every 6 months, we have an eclipse and we have an activation in that area of our chart. There's more to that story coming in. Now, the rulers of Aquarius is Saturn and Uranus. The traditional ruler of Aquarius is Saturn. The modern ruler is Uranus. So you also want to check to see where your Saturn and Uranus natal placements are, because that is going to add to the story and also activate those areas of life. Now, we newly have Saturn in Aries. This is a brand new energy, and this solar eclipse is actually 3 days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction, which is in your first house. So you're probably feeling the heaviness of, Saturn just shifting into your first house. But there is going to be an activation here with this eclipse because that's the ruler. So you also want to just be a little bit mindful of that it can seem a little bit heavy. It can trigger possibly something with your body. The first house has to do with you. This is the house of the self, your character, your personality, your perception of reality, how you want others to perceive you, how you navigate the world. And that's all up for change, all up for review with this Saturn Neptune transit through the first house, but there's also going to be a huge activation here with this solar eclipse. Now, Uranus is in Taurus here in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions, also your personal values. This solar eclipse is actually squaring Uranus. Uranus just stationed direct on February 3rd. I feel like for this Uranus Taurus activation, we've had Uranus and Taurus for about 8 years. I feel like whatever Uranus has not been able to awaken, liberate, activate in this area of life, this is when it happens. Uranus is like, whatever I have not been able to shift, it's happening now and it's happening before I leave this sign. And that's so there could be an activation there. But again, Uranus has been transiting over these degree points for about the last a year. This could activate something that you've possibly already been navigating around your money, around your finances, and around, material possessions and personal values and your sense of safety and security, because that's also in that second house. And your sense of self-worth is in the second house as well. So there may be, triggers around that or a liberation. There might be a sudden shift when it has to do with your personal values and sense of safety and self-worth. We want to keep in mind that this is actually going to be the first and last eclipse where we will have Uranus and Taurus. Uranus is going to enter Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there until May 2033. The energy is going to feel different. This is going to be the first and the last solar eclipse in this cycle, or eclipse in this cycle of, the Leo Aquarius eclipses with Uranus and Taurus. The one thing about having Uranus and Taurus is that Taurus is a very grounded, stable energy, and it can help us remain grounded and keep our feet on the ground through all of this disruption and chaos and unpredictability. Once Uranus enters Gemini, that energy speeds up. The change comes in a lot quicker. And I mean, this is already going to activate sudden change. However, we still have this like little bit of energy supporting us to stay grounded with Uranus and Taurus. Once Uranus moves into Gemini, it's a very quick energy and things start to speed up. The change will be coming in much quicker. The Aquarius and Uranus energy is about liberation. It's going to liberate us out of old systems, old structures, aspects of our life where we're no longer aligned with. This is very much an energy that is going to push us into authenticity, push us into a path where we can be authentic and truly live in our truth, because that is that Aquarius and Uranus energy. There's new paths, new connections, doors opening very suddenly. And this is going to happen without feeling any type of a buildup. For you, this is activating your 11th house of friends and friendships. And I think you will notice over the next 2 years, and there may even be an event this month where something happens that shakes you out of your comfort zone when it has to do with social structures and groups of friends, where you come to this realization that you are no longer aligned with this area of life, these people, this group, and you will find that doors open, and there can be sudden things happening with friends too. There can be, difficulties around friendships over the next few years, but it's to really show you and put you on a path that, again, is more in alignment with you, so you can have more people around you that are more authentic, more truthful. With this square between the solar eclipse and Uranus, this can be disruptive realizations that can possibly turn into breakthroughs. Now, we also have Venus getting ready to form a conjunction to the North Node in Pisces. Venus also rules your second house of money, finances, and material possessions, and your seventh house of relationships and one on one connections, partnerships, business partnerships. So, this can be literally being thrown into a new direction when it has to do with relationships, when it has to do with financial commitments, because of that North Node energy. And this could be something you've been navigating since around January 2025. This is where, because Venus is dispositing that Uranus energy, with Uranus being in Taurus, it's going to be quick. We also have Mercury at 15 degrees in pre-shadow period, forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde at 15 degrees in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. That 12th house is all about isolation, things, people, places that are hidden, what's going on behind the scenes, what you're doing behind the scenes. This can also be the house of self-undoing and self-sabotaging, the house of karma. So having the North Node here the last year, there's been a lot that you've been navigating in this area of life. Also, the 12th house rules hospitals, asylums, retreat centers. Now, this Venus conjunction can have a new relationship coming in, a new karmic connection. It can also be the ending of a connection. It's in that 12th house of ending. So it's going to look different, like I said, for everyone. This could even be a leveling up in the current relationship. So maybe an engagement. It's interesting for Aries rising because Venus rules your seventh and your second house. And being in Pisces, when Venus is in Pisces, Venus is exalted in Pisces. So it's a great placement for your money, finances, and relationships, but it's in your 12th house. So it's suppressed or there's something going on behind the scenes. I am sure for some Aries risings, they've got some secret relationships going on. I'm sure some of you do, not all of you, because there's many ways this energy can manifest. But I am sure some of you have secret affairs and relationships going on. And if that is the case with this Mercury retrograde here over the next, couple of months, this is where truths can be revealed, secrets can come out. And for some of you, there might be an activation of that with this solar eclipse and with this energy. Now, with Mercury forming a trine to Jupiter, Jupiter being also activated by the solar eclipse because the moon rules Cancer and this is in your fourth house, Jupiter is retrograde. So this energy does indicate this is going to be more of an internal shift. There's great wisdom to be gained here with this energy. There can be a sudden realization. This is in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So whatever you've been navigating around home and family, and also your private life, like your private life is in that fourth house too. Your public life is in the 10th house. Your private life is in the fourth. So having Jupiter in your fourth house, which is one of those private houses, and then all that energy in your 12th, maybe the last year you really have been doing a lot in private, a lot behind the scenes, a lot, that not a lot of people know. So when Mercury forms that trine, there can be a sudden shift in your mindset. There can be a sudden shift with a conversation that you're having with somebody. This could be actually a deep, intense, powerful conversation with a partner or a personal connection. This can and also too, I want to mention because Mercury's going to station retrograde February 25th and move back over that 15th degree and connect to Jupiter as well 2 more times. Pay attention to kind of what this is indicating and activating because you could be revisiting it. You could be whatever is showing up around, your home, family, property, real estate. Also, possibly Jupiter rules that ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, or belief systems. Um, Astrology is in that ninth house too, and publishing is in the ninth house. That area can be activated as well. But like I said, I feel like because Jupiter is retrograde, it is more of an internal growth and wisdom being developed. There's something you're going to be revisiting here. There is something that is taking place. And again, it's a trine. So it's not a challenge. But it is a shift. It is a powerful gain and an opportunity for growth. Aries, you are going through so many changes. I mean, we are all going through this massive rebirth and personal reset over the next few years. But with you having that Saturn in the first house and Neptune, this is all about who you are and your identity, your purpose, what you want, from the world and what you want to give to the world. And so you're going to be going through massive changes. And this is really when it all starts this month. Taurus, you have this solar eclipse in Aquarius in your 10th house of career, public reputation, your legacy, your public image. This is the beginning of brand new changes and direction in this area of life. We've had the lunar nodes transiting Virgo and Pisces since January 2025. And so, where we are still navigating the changes in those areas of life, this is initiating us into this new 2 year cycle and story that is going to play out for the next 2 years. Now, this is the initial eclipse that is initiating us into this cycle of eclipses. However, the lunar nodes will make that official shift into Leo and Aquarius on July 26, 2026, and will stay there till March 26, 2028. Now, I've been observing the lunar nodes and eclipses for years, and one thing I've realized is that with the first initial eclipse in that cycle, whatever major events or activations are taking place, this really shows us what that 2 year cycle and story is going to look like. Anything significant that is showing up for you, it's in that 10th house of career and public reputation. You also want to know where you have your Saturn placement and your Uranus placement in your birth chart, because that's going to add to the story. That's also going to let you know more of the activations that can take place and more of the changes that can take place in your life. But this is activating your 10th house of career. So anything this month that is showing up around your career, around your public reputation, what you want to be known for out in the world, that can give you an idea of what the next 2 year story is going to look like. And every 6 months when we enter eclipse season and we have activations of, these areas of life, there's more to that story that is coming in. Both Saturn and Uranus are the rulers of Aquarius. So they're both being activated. Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. I use both. I always look to both because I think both can be quite significant, and they're both going to be activated. And so Saturn just entered Aries, and this is in your 12th house of things, people, places that are hidden, hospitals, asylums, retreat centers. This is also the house of karma. This is the house of isolation, the house of self-undoing and self-sabotaging. And so Saturn is going to be, shifting and changing this area of life for you and will be also activated by this solar eclipse. And then Uranus is getting ready to leave your first house. You've had Uranus and Taurus for the last 8 years. And this is the last bit of stretch for Uranus and Taurus. And Uranus has been navigating these degree points for about a year. I do feel like the activation here to Uranus is whatever Uranus has not been able to liberate or change over this last 8 year cycle, it's going to happen now. Uranus is like, I am not leaving this area, this sign until I make these changes. And Uranus enters Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there until May 2033. And also, once Uranus makes that shift, because remember, this is going to be the first and last Uranus in Taurus influence with these cycle of eclipses for the next 2 years. Once Uranus enters Gemini, which we will feel with the next eclipse in Aquarius, that energy is a lot faster. So changes are coming quicker, and this is already initiating a lot of very quick, disruptive, unpredictable change, but it's going to come in even faster with Uranus and Gemini. Gemini is an air sign. It's very quick, very curious. And I do think that a lot of what we will all be moving through in our own way is this energy is going to force us to be open to change because if there's resistance towards this change, that's when we can experience more friction, more tension. If we are more open to the change and have this vibe of like going with the flow, it can be a lot smoother. So this solar eclipse is going to form a square to Uranus as well. And so that's that's where this energy gets interesting and a little bit difficult. I don't like to say difficult, but it can activate, massive change and, huge disruption and shakeup out of our comfort zones. This is where there's things that are coming in and happening and doors opening, doors closing without any buildup. This is with you, you still having Uranus in the first house, which the first house represents you, your character, personality, physical body, how you view reality or perception of the world and how you want others to perceive you, that mask you wear to the out in the world, and how you navigate the world on a day-to-day basis, how you approach the world and events and experiences. And that can be shaken up with this energy. So just be a little bit mindful of that. We also have at the same time of this solar eclipse, about a couple hours later, we're going to have Venus, your chart ruler, form a conjunction to the North Node, which is in your 11th house of friendships and social groups, online connections, social media, all the groups and associations you're connected to. And there's been, quite a lot of changes here in this area of life, having the eclipses and the nodes here. But Venus being your chart ruler and also dispositing this Uranus energy. Whenever you've been navigating here around friends, there could be a sudden disruption or event, or there could be just something completely showing up out of the blue that puts you on a new path moving forward with a new social circle, a new friendship group, this can even be, some type of online connection, some type of online community. So do be mindful of that. Not that it's going to be, bad or anything, but it can be karmic, and it definitely is a part of your journey and aligned because it's that North Node, right? And then we also have Mercury forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde in Cancer, which is in your third house of your mind and mindset and communication, self-expression, anything that's associated with reading, speaking, writing, also your local community, your neighbors and neighborhood, local travel, vehicles, siblings and cousins. There is so much packed in that third house. There really is. But, whatever Jupiter's activated here for you over the last it hasn't been quite a year, but almost. Um, it could be something around that. But Jupiter's retrograde. And so this can show this is more of an internal growth, internal wisdom that is formed out of a possible like shift in your mindset or a conversation that you're having with a friend or some information that you're receiving, possibly whatever actually, you want to keep in mind because Mercury is this is the pre-shadow period. Mercury is going to retrograde back over that degree point. And so Mercury is going to form a trine to Jupiter 3 times. So also whatever's activated here, whatever conversation you're having with a friend or connection you're forming, you may be revisiting that. But there can definitely be some type of insight and personal wisdom and growth that takes place out of it. Gemini, you have this solar eclipse in Aquarius in your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, or belief systems. The ninth house also rules astrology, religion. Those themes and topics are all up for change over the next 2 years. Now you will get an idea of what that change is going to look like this month with this solar eclipse in Aquarius and all the other activations. You do want to know where you have your personal Saturn and Uranus placement because that is also going to add to the story for you. It will show you other areas of life that can be activated and triggered with change. This is the beginning of a brand new 2 year cycle. And I've been observing the nodes and eclipses for years. And one thing I've discovered is that the houses and the changes that the eclipses and nodes are activating for us, there's something that shows up with that first initial eclipse to show us what that change is going to be over the next 2 years in this area of life. And so for you, this could be maybe deciding to go back to school or take a course, or maybe you're starting to become interested in something. And then by the next eclipse season, you decide to learn more about it and take a course. That's what happened to me when I had the North Node transiting the ninth house. Mind you, it was also a nodal. Um, my nodal return, so it was very significant too. But you may even decide to travel more, travel the world. This could be, wanting to, this could definitely be changing religious beliefs and just your beliefs in general, right? Your Uranus and Aquarius energies is all about liberation, like liberating you out of old structures, old versions of self that are holding you back in some way. So there's going to be shakeups where we are too comfortable. There's going to be shakeups in areas in this area of life where we are holding on to something that maybe we're just no longer in alignment with. And it's that North Node. The North Node represents something new. It's a new fated karmic direction. Now we have Saturn newly in Aries, which is going to be activated by this Aquarius solar eclipse because Saturn's the traditional ruler of Aquarius. And this is 3 days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction. Now, if you want to know more about the Saturn Neptune conjunction, you can check out the video I have on my YouTube channel. I dive deep into this energy and past, present, future events and all 12 rising signs. But there is going to be an activation here, and this is in your 11th house of friendships and social circles and online connections and all the groups and associations you're connected to. So it's just another area of life to be a bit mindful of. And then we have the solar eclipse squaring Uranus, the modern ruler. And this is still in Taurus at those final degrees. And Uranus has been moving over these last few degrees for about a year. So there can be an activation around something you've already been navigating. But this is in your 12th house. You've had Uranus here for, 8 years. The 12th house rules, things, people, places that are hidden, hospitals, asylums, retreat centers. The 12th house is about isolation, self-undoing, self-sabotaging, karma. So if there's something around those themes and topics you've been navigating, I would say about the last year, there might be something around that showing up. But this is like a final Uranus hurrah. This is where Uranus is saying and showing us like the whatever I've wanted to liberate in this area of life for you, that I have not been able to do yet. It's all happening now, all happening at once before I shift into Gemini. Uranus enters Gemini April 25th. 2026 and we'll be there till May 2033, which is in your first house, right? So that's going to be a bit disruptive. And actually, for you, Gemini, you may even feel, very anxious and experience a lot of anxiety with this energy. So, just another thing to be a little bit cautious of and mindful of. But this is also going to be the first and last eclipse in Aquarius and the set of eclipses that we will have Uranus and Taurus. And this Taurus energy is keeping Uranus somewhat grounded and less and a little bit more stable because Taurus is a very grounded and stable energy. It's once Uranus moves into Gemini, that energy then becomes very quick, very fast. And so where this whole square is going to activate change, yes. But with Uranus being in Taurus, we do still somewhat have the ability to stay grounded. Once Uranus enters Gemini, moving forward, the energy becomes quicker. There's sudden change. Things are going to shift a lot quicker. Doors are going to open, doors are going to close. And it's going to be very unpredictable. It's going to be very destabilizing. And I really think that this is going to teach us all in our own way how to be open to change, how to adapt to change. Because if we resist it, it's going to create more friction and more tension in this area of life. And so I think we will all have to learn how to just go with the flow and be open and just know and understand that we are in this time of disruption, of shock, of unpredictability. This energy is all about putting us on a new path of freedom, evolution, and where we can live truthfully and authentically in this certain area of our life. I think we will see out in the collective more people not conforming and just having this need to feel accepted or have this need for approval. So for you, maybe you've always wanted to travel and there's been something that's held you back. And now all of a sudden you are going to decide to travel the world, or maybe you've wanted to teach or publish a book. That is all those ninth house themes and topics. Now, at the same time, we also have Venus forming a conjunction to the North Node a couple hours after that solar eclipse. And this is in your 10th house of career and public reputation. So you've been going through massive changes when it has to do with your home life and family and real estate and your public life down here in the fourth house and your 10th house of your public life. This is your private life. This is your public life and your public image and career. And so when Venus forms a conjunction to that North Node, there could be a powerful door opening. There could be a powerful opportunity, a fated opportunity. It could be something you've already been experiencing or navigating. But I love this Venus because Venus is exalted in Pisces. So it's a great energy for Venus. Venus rules the 12th house and is dispositing also the Uranus energy. So it's adding to this whole solar eclipse vibe and change that's being activated that is like throwing us into this new direction and path. And Venus also rules your fifth house of children and creativity, your what you find joy in, what lights you up. This is the house of romance and passion and hobbies and interests. So there could be even too, some type of powerful change in those areas of life. And we also have Mercury. Pre-shadow, so Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 25th, and Mercury is forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde here in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions. Now, Mercury is your chart ruler. So I believe this here because Mercury is going to form a trine to Jupiter 3 times as Mercury through this whole retrograde cycle. And so there is also activations happening at this time that we will be revisiting. There's events and conversations and information and powerful discoveries that are taking place now that will be revisited. And there will be more to the story coming in over the next couple of months throughout this Mercury retrograde period. But Jupiter being retrograde at this time, I think this is a lot of internal wisdom and growth being developed through maybe a conversation, maybe a shift in your mindset or direction. Mercury also rules that fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So it can also be something very powerful coming in around home and family. This solar eclipse is the beginning of massive changes, major endings and major beginnings in this area of life. And it all starts now. Cancer, you have this solar eclipse in your eighth house of your partner's finances, money coming in from outside resources, taxes, inheritance, psychological healing and transformation. There's a lot in that eighth house. Loans, debts, secrets, the occult. It's all up for change. It's all up for review over the next 2 years. This is the first eclipse in this cycle of eclipses to initiate us into this new change, this new 2 year story. So we have to pay attention this whole month, what is showing up for us, because that's going to give us an idea of what the next 2 years are going to look like. And you have the lunar nodes entering your eighth house and your second house, your money houses. The north node is entering Aquarius, which is indicating a new direction and a new fated journey in this area of life. And the south node is entering Leo in your second house of your money, your finances, your material possessions, your personal values, your self-worth, and how you value yourself, your time. It's all up for change. The south node indicates it's kind of our karmic comfort zone, and it can be like an event or something coming back from the past, but it's usually representing something that we're having to move away from because it's holding us back in some way from evolving. Now, the lunar nodes enter Leo and Aquarius on July 26, 2026, and will be there till March 26, 2028. Now, we won't be done with the change that's going on in Virgo and the Pisces area until we get into 2027 when we have our final eclipse in Virgo. However, we will start to feel this completion and closing out from the Virgo Pisces areas and this new change showing up and arising from the Leo Aquarius axes. Now, you want to know where you have your personal Saturn and Uranus placement because that's going to add to the story. That can also show you other areas of life that can go through changes or be influenced through this transit. When we're talking about Aquarius energy, which is ruled by Saturn and Uranus, Saturn's the traditional ruler, Uranus is the modern ruler. We're talking about sudden, disruptive, unpredictable shock and change. Now, for this first eclipse that we're having, we have Uranus and Taurus. But once Uranus makes that shift into Gemini on April 25th, 2026, that energy and those changes are going to come in a lot quicker. There's going to be doors opening and doors closing suddenly without any buildup, without any, you know, where we can't necessarily feel like the change is coming or sense that there's going to be an ending or a beginning. It's like something just happens. And this is to liberate us out of comfort zones that are holding us back. This energy is truly going to push us into a new path that is more aligned with who we are now, where we can be more authentically us, where you can be authentically you and live in your truth. We are going to see more in the collective where people are no longer going to seek approval and acceptance. People are going to be more willing to live authentically and in their truth in a world that is more aligned with who they are. So we newly have Saturn in Aries, which is going to be activated by this eclipse because it is the traditional ruler of Aquarius. And that's in your 10th house of your career and public reputation, your public image. So there can be, somewhat of an activation here with the changes that are going to take place with this whole Saturn transit. This is where there can be that initiation kind of. It's kind of an interesting way to look at it, but it is how it can show up. And Saturn being that planet of responsibility and discipline and structure, can also bring challenge, limitation, and life lessons and delays in this area. And so these are all things to think of. But if you want to dive deep into this whole Saturn Neptune transit through Aries, you can check out the forecast I have on the channel. I dive deep into this energy and go over all 12 rising signs. But there can be a major activation here when it has to do with your career and your public life. And then we have Uranus in Taurus in your 11th house of friendships and social circles and online connections and all the groups and associations that you're connected to. And so we've had Uranus in Taurus since 2018, about 8 years. And so this is like a final hurrah. Now, Uranus has been transiting over these final degrees, I would say, about the last year. So this can activate maybe something you've been navigating with a friend over the last year, but this can also activate something completely out of the blue because this solar eclipse is squaring Uranus. And I honestly feel like there is going to be like a major shift here where Uranus is like, whatever I've not been able to change in this area of your life that I've wanted to change, that was my goal coming in, is all being done right now before I leave. But this is an energy where there can be, something very shocking around finances and friendships. Now, at the same time of the solar eclipse, about a couple hours later, Venus is going to form a conjunction to the North Node. There can be something very powerful, something very sudden, pushing you in a new direction. Like maybe you all of a sudden decide to take a trip or take a course, or there's a shift in your belief in some way, or um, a shift in uh, like your religious belief. This is the house of publishing too. So this can show up in many ways. This again can be something you've already been navigating with the North Node here, but also Venus is dispositing that Uranus Taurus activation and energy. And so this can also activate a sudden push forward in a new direction in this area of life. And then we also have Mercury at 15 degrees here. And at this point, Mercury is pre-shadow because Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 25th of February in Pisces. So there's also something else in this area of life that we will be revisiting and reevaluating, which can be activated here. And Mercury is forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde, which is in your first house. I really do feel like with this Jupiter retrograde, this can be this opportunity for internal wisdom, internal growth developed through something that is either breaking, disruptive, or highlighted here at this time. Mercury is going to retrograde. So whatever is showing up with this trine, you're going to be revisiting this. And this is not necessarily a negative energy. I just think this is a powerful shift, throwing you in a new direction, whether it is letting go of old belief systems or things that have been holding you back in some way. Into your solar eclipse forecast. So you have this solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees in your seventh house of relationships and one-on-one connections, business partnerships. So you are about to begin this brand new journey of major endings and major beginnings when it has to do with you and your partnerships, how you connect within relationships, what you need within partnerships, having the nodes transiting your first and your seventh house. The north node will be entering your seventh house and the south node will be entering your first house. Now, the south node represents something that we're moving away from or parts. It tends to bring up like our karmic comfort zones, and it tends to activate, aspects of ourselves that are holding us back in some way. And then that north node is a new direction or something new we're moving into. And so having the north node transit your seventh house can bring in new relationships or a leveling up within relationships. Now, the lunar nodes are not going to officially enter Leo and Aquarius until July 26, 2026, and will be there until March 26, 2028. However, this solar eclipse that we are having in Aquarius is the first eclipse initiating us into this cycle of eclipses, which really begins this brand new 2-year story that is playing out. And I have been observing the nodes and the eclipses for some time now. And one thing I've noticed is significant events that happen during that first initial eclipse it tends to give you an idea of what the rest of the story is going to look like, the changes that are going to take place over the next 2 years. So we really want to pay attention during this time to what is showing up in your world, especially around relationships and one-on-one connections. Now, you also want to know where you have your natal Saturn and Uranus placement because that's going to add to the story as Saturn and Uranus are the rulers of Aquarius. Saturn is the traditional ruler and Uranus is the modern ruler. And now, if we look at this chart, we have Saturn now in Aries, which is in your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, or belief systems. And so Saturn is going to be, shifting and changing this area of your life up over the next couple years. And I do have a forecast on my channel if you want to check that out. But that Saturn is going to be activated with this eclipse. And this is 3 days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction. So there can be something activated or triggered around maybe traveling or going to school or taking a course or your belief systems in some way. And then Uranus is here, which is in Taurus in your 10th house of career and public reputation. And so Uranus just stationed direct, and this is the last stretch of Uranus in Taurus. Uranus is going to enter Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there until May 2033. And so this is going to be the first and the only eclipse out of this cycle of eclipses where we have Uranus in Taurus, which, if you think about it, having Taurus influence a little bit is helping us at least create some stability and keep ourselves grounded. Once Uranus moves into Gemini, these changes are coming in massive, quick, like suddenly. There is no buildup to what is around the corner. It just happens. And that is all a part of this energy that we're moving through the next 2 years is sudden disruptive change, very quick, very fast, without any warning. Now, actually a couple hours after the solar eclipse, we're going to have Venus form a conjunction to the North Node. And so you've had the nodes transiting your money houses since January of 2025. And the North Node, again, represents like something new or direction that you're moving into in this area of life. And that eighth house rules your partner's finances or shared resources, taxes, inheritance, debt, loans. Also, the eighth house rules psychological healing and transformation, your fears, secrets, and the occult is actually also represented in that eighth house. So, whatever you've been moving through around this last year, there could be something else around that showing up at this time. Or again, because Venus is dispositing that Uranus energy, this could just be something very sudden, showing up either around your partner's finances or around a loan, a debt, maybe money coming in. So yeah, I mean, Venus is exalted here. This is a great placement for Venus. This literally could be, you know, like a lump sum of money coming in from somewhere. But also Venus rules that 10th house of career and public reputation. So there could also be maybe something disruptive going on at your career or around your public reputation. And then Venus rules your third house of vehicles and your local community, neighbors, neighborhood, siblings, cousins, your local environment. Also, vehicles and local travel is represented in the third house. Your self-expression is represented in the third house. So I will say, because Venus is influencing that third house, do be careful with driving. And I always say that whenever we have Uranus influencing cars, just be careful with driving because there can be accidents, or I've also seen people get pulled over with certain transits with Uranus and vehicles. And so, yeah, just be cautious of that. Um, but also too, that third house is your self-expression or anything that really has to do with speaking, reading, writing. So maybe there's something around those themes and topics that are showing up for you. And then we have Mercury, which is at this point in its pre-shadow phase because we're going to have a Mercury retrograde on the 25th of February. Mercury is actually going to be in Pisces till the middle of March. So Mercury's forming a nice trine to Jupiter retrograde here in Cancer, which is also activated. So there could be something really powerful. Actually, for you, Leo, I see this could be like a deep psychological transformation or healing that kind of takes place where something just clicks, where it's this powerful insight or clarity around something. But yeah, I do love that because it's Jupiter retrograde, it's in that 12th house. I feel like it's more along the lines of like healing and it's some type of like internal click. And then Mercury also ruling your second house of money and finances. Um, too. So there could be, again, actually, there's actually a lot of really positive energy here for money coming in or something really positive around like a new money venture or something around your finances. And then Mercury rules your 11th house of friendships and social circles and online connections. And so just keep that in mind too, even with the Mercury retrograde, that the houses that are ruled by Mercury can be influenced by, Mercury retrogrades. But Leo, if you want to dive deeper into the Saturn Neptune energy that we'll all be navigating for the next few years, make sure you check out that forecast on my channel. Virgo, you have this solar eclipse in Aquarius in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine. And so this is the first eclipse out of this cycle of eclipses in Leo and Aquarius that we will be having over the next 2 years. So we still have the lunar nodes transiting the first and the seventh house for you, that south node in the first and the north node in the seventh. So you've been going through a lot of changes when it has to do with you and your one-on-one connections, relationships, and how you connect within partnerships and what you require, what you need, and what you're done with. Well, once we get to July 26, 2026, the lunar nodes enter Leo and Aquarius, bringing change to a new area of our life. And this solar eclipse is what is initiating us into that change. So we want to pay attention to what is showing up for us this month during eclipse season with this solar eclipse, whatever is being activated, because that's going to give us an idea of what the next 2 years are going to look like and what the possible changes can be. And so, this happening in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine, there might be something around your health showing up. Maybe you're getting more serious about your health. Maybe you're starting some new nutrition habits. Maybe you get a pet because pets are in the sixth house. This can activate also, too, your daily duties at work because your career is in the 10th, but the labor that you put into your career is in the sixth. And so, there might be a lot of changes around all of your routines, whether it's at work, at home and just maybe getting more healthier, maybe wanting to focus more on your health and implement some new nutrition habits. And so, again, pay attention to kind of what is showing up around this time because that's going to give you an idea of what the next 2 years are going to look like. Now, we have also take a look at your natal Saturn and Uranus placement because Aquarius is ruled by Saturn and Uranus. Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius, and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. And both those planets are going to be activated. And if you know where you have your personal natal placements of Saturn and Uranus, it can add to this story and the other areas of life that can be activated. So Saturn is here in your eighth house of your partner's finances and shared resources, taxes, inheritance, debt, loans, also psychological healing and transformation, which I think is going to be really potent for you, Virgo, over the next couple of years. So there's definitely going to be an activation here, especially because this is 3 days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction. So there can be some type of activation here around maybe your partner's finances or a loan or debt, taxes, or again, psychological healing or transformation, or maybe having to address a deep fear that you have because the eighth house does rule, our deepest fears. And then Uranus is up here in your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, your belief systems, wisdom, um, astrology is in the ninth house. And so Uranus is actually on its way out and going to enter Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there till May 2033. So this is the one and only eclipse out of this cycle of eclipses that we're going to have Uranus and Taurus, which, if you think about it, having that your Taurus influence is helping us stay a bit grounded and have a bit more stability because once Uranus enters Gemini, things are going to move fast. fast. Like we're talking about quick, sudden, disruptive, unpredictable change, like no buildup, you know? So that's one thing about this energy that we're all going to have to learn to adapt to is the fact that there's going to be massive changes in certain areas of our life. And this is really all about breaking us free from stagnant comfort zones that are holding us back so we can become the most authentic version of self and to put us on this brand new path. So whatever we're holding on to tightly to, or whatever we're kind of stuck in this area of life, there's going to be a shakeup there. And we're going to be thrown into this world of being uncomfortable because you grow from being uncomfortable. You know what I'm saying? I've heard once where dreams die. Um, a comfort zone is where dreams go to die, something along those lines. And if you think about it, it's true because as long as you're comfortable, why do you try to grow? You have to get uncomfortable to grow. And that's going to be us the next few years for everyone. Um, I think also too, just that Aquarius and Uranian energy, this is more also too of not, I think we'll see too within society and the collective, and even on an individual level, of not needing to feel, seek this need for approval or have this need to feel accepted, where people will no longer, you know, go with society standards in a sense. A lot of people are going to start to feel more comfortable being their most authentic self and speaking their truth. And I think that and that's going to be a really big thing with all this Aquarius energy the next few years. And so Virgo, for you, you know, maybe you do get serious about your health. Now, also, a couple hours after the solar eclipse, Venus is going to connect to that north node. And so there might be something really big coming in around what you've already been navigating around relationships, or this could just be something kind of brand new because Venus is dispositing that. Uranus energy, where maybe just somebody very sudden comes into your life and ends up being like a significant part of your life. But we do definitely want to pay attention. This is a big thing. This is the solar eclipse and then Venus conjunct the North Node, which is dispositing that, Aquarius energy. It's almost like we are being pushed into this new fated direction one way or another. And then we also have Mercury forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde in your 11th house of friendships and social circles. And Mercury's your chart ruler. So there's a lot of focus on relationships and one-on-one connections right now. And there might be something, really positive coming here with a friend, maybe some support from a friend, or maybe there is like a good friend that becomes a partner. Libra, you have the solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees of your fifth house of children and creativity, passion, romance, hobbies, interests. Everything you do for fun is in that fifth house. Everything that brings you joy is in that fifth house. And so having the North Node enter this fifth house is going to bring you into some new direction here. You may get pregnant. Your family may grow. There might be more focus on your current children, or maybe you get back into some hobbies that you used to, love doing, or start developing a lot of creative ventures and projects. And so this solar eclipse is the first eclipse that is going to initiate us into this cycle of eclipses that are taking place in the Leo Aquarius axis. Now, we're not going to officially have the lunar nodes enter Leo and Aquarius until July 26, 2026, and we'll be there till March 26, 2028. So, whatever is showing up in our world, whatever is being activated with this solar eclipse, this is going to give us an idea of what the next 2 years is going to look like, what the major endings are going to be, what the major beginnings are going to be in this area of life. So we definitely want to pay attention to, what's showing up that stands out, that is significant. Now, you also want to know where you have your personal natal Saturn and Uranus placement because they're the rulers of Aquarius, and that's going to bring more depth to the story and also show you other areas of life that can be activated over the next 2 years. Now, here we have Saturn newly in Aries, which is in your seventh house of relationships and one-on-one connections. And so there can definitely be an activation here because Saturn is that traditional ruler around relationships. And then this is just 3 days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction. And so, if you do want to dive deeper into the Saturn Neptune conjunction, definitely check out my YouTube channel. There's a forecast on there, and where I go into like past events and then how it's affecting all rising signs. But there can be an activation here with partnerships and relationships or business partnerships. And then Uranus is up here in Taurus at those end degrees. And so Uranus in your eighth house of your shared resources, your partner's finances, money coming in from outside resources like taxes, inheritance, debt, loans. There can be an activation with those themes and topics. But we want to keep in mind that Uranus, this is going to be the one and only eclipse out of this cycle of eclipses that we have Uranus in Taurus, because Uranus is going to enter Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there till May 2033. Now, having Uranus in Taurus is giving us this ability to stay a bit grounded and have a bit more stability. Once Uranus enters Gemini, the changes and the disruption and the unpredictability quickens. This is a fast moving energy. So the changes that are coming in for us, on a collective and individual level, there's not going to be any buildup. It's just going to happen. And that's going to be one of the challenges with having the eclipses in this Aquarius Leo axis is this is going to throw us all into like new journeys, new paths, and shake us out of our comfort zones. This is about really liberating us to put us on a new path that is more in alignment with who we are now and the direction we're moving into, but where we can be more authentically ourselves. There is there's not going to be so much of this need to feel accepted or seek this need of approval. And I think we'll see that play out too in the collective, where nobody's going to care about, abiding by society standards. People are going to branch off on their own and speak their truth. And we will see a lot more individuality and uniqueness with this energy. And so for you, this could show and play out in your creative projects. Maybe you've always wanted to do something, and now is where you break free and finally decide to do that. That's one way that, this energy could show up. But I've also seen, people grow a family here because it is that fifth house of children, or even develop a daycare, or, something, work with children in some way. And now, also, too, a couple hours after the solar eclipse, we're going to have Venus, your chart ruler, form a conjunction to the North Node, which is in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine. Now, you've had the nodes transiting your sixth and your 12th house since January of 2025. So there might be something really powerful showing up at this time around something you've already been navigating in this area of life, or it could be something just completely out of the blue because Venus is dispositing that Uranus energy um, in your eighth house. So it could be like something very sudden around your finances, or it could be something very sudden, um, possibly even too with like your life direction, like you just completely get pushed in this new direction that was very unexpected. And it could have to do with um, it could have to do with finances, but it could also maybe have to do with health, or maybe you get a pet. Maybe, your routine is changing in some way, so you have to make adjustments there. But Venus is your chart ruler, so maybe there's just something that you're deciding to completely shift and change and go in a new direction with. And then Mercury is also in the sixth house, forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde up in your 10th house of career and public reputation. So I do love this. I feel like more with Jupiter retrograde, this could be more of like an internal growth, internal wisdom, internal breakthrough. But Mercury's going to station retrograde on the 25th and move back and connect to Jupiter like two more times. So also whatever's brought up here, you might be revisiting, like maybe you hear something about a coworker or your job or an employee or your health or a pet, or again, those sixth house themes and topics, and you have to go back, you have to address it. Now, Mercury also rules your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, philosophy, your belief systems. So you may also be, working through something in that area of life as well. And it doesn't, again, necessarily mean it's something negative or bad. It could just be a message or information or just something you're navigating. Scorpio, you have the solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. So, this area of life is being lit up and going through massive changes, major endings and major beginnings over the next 2 years. And this eclipse is what's going to initiate us into this change. So, we want to pay attention this entire month of February. What is being activated by this solar eclipse, especially when it has to do with home, family, property, and real estate? Because this can give you an idea of the change that you'll be navigating for the next 2 years. Now, we still have the nodes in Virgo and Pisces. We will have the nodes officially enter Leo and Aquarius July 26, 2026, and we'll be there till March 26, 2028. So, I have noticed, though, observing the nodes and the eclipses, that um, wherever we have the lunar nodes transiting our chart and the eclipse is activating, whatever is brought up by that first eclipse, it really does tend to give us an idea of the change that's taking place. It's almost like this 2 year story playing out. And every time we enter eclipse season, there's like more to that story coming in. Like, for example, maybe now is when you start to think about moving. And 6 months from now, and next eclipse season, you start looking. And then next eclipse season, you actually make the move. Like, you know what I mean? There's like a story playing out. And then each season, it's like another step to that story. That is one thing I've noticed through my own personal observation, kind of tracking these transits with the nodes and eclipses. Now, you also want to know where you have your personal Saturn and Uranus placement, because Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. And so that's going to also bring more depth to this energy and show you all other areas of life that can be activated and where you could be going through some change. Now, we have Saturn newly in Aries, which is in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine. So that Saturn is going to be activated with the solar eclipse. And this is 3 days before the Saturn Neptune conjunction. So, if you do want to take a deep dive into what the Saturn Neptune transit can bring for you, make sure you check out my Aries Neptune transit my Saturn Neptune through Aries transit forecast, where I go into all this energy and I also go into past, present, future events and then all 12 rising signs. But this is, changing your sixth house up of work, health, and daily routine. And so there could be an activation around health, an activation around maybe you get a pet, because Saturn does rule responsibilities. And so it could bring more responsibility in this area of life. And that could look like maybe you decide to get a dog or a pet of some kind. And then Uranus is at those late degrees of Taurus in your seventh house of relationships and one on one connections. Now, we want to keep in mind that this is going to be the one and only eclipse out of this cycle of eclipses with Leo and Aquarius, where we have Uranus and Taurus. Uranus is going to enter Gemini April 25th, 2026, and will be there till May 2033. So, Taurus is a very grounded energy. So, it's at least giving us this ability to stay a bit. It's giving us this ability to have more stability and stay a bit grounded with all of this kind of chaos going on. Once Uranus enters Gemini, this is a very quick moving energy. This is where change, disruption, and unpredictability is coming in quick. It's coming in fast. And so we want to also keep that in mind. A lot of this Uranus and Aquarius energy is about shaking us out of our comfort zones so that we can move into this path that is more aligned with who we are and where we can, step into this more authentic version of self. This is all about liberation. It's all about personal evolution. And this is where major doors can shut and major doors can open, but it's going to happen very quick and we're going to have to jump on it very fast. And that's something that we will have to kind of learn over the next 2 years. Because yeah, we're in just this very kind of quick moving energy of change and chaos, disruption and unpredictability. And then also too, we have Venus approaching a conjunction to the North Node in your fifth house of children, creativity, passion, romance, hobbies, interests. Venus is going to form that conjunction a couple hours after the solar eclipse. And so this can bring in something very significant around what you've already been moving through in this area of life, or because Venus is dispositing that Uranus energy, it could be something very sudden, like maybe somebody very like out of the blue comes into your life, but they end up being quite significant because it is working with like your fifth and seventh house, your seventh house of relationships and your fifth house of romance. Like maybe you go on a date this day and you end up marrying this person down the road. Like that is one way this could show up. But definitely, yeah, it's a time to just kind of pay attention to what's showing up. Or maybe you find out you're pregnant, or maybe there's something going on with your children, or even a creative project. Venus rules your 12th house, and then yeah, that's seventh. So I would say more so it's like activating that seventh house energy, only because Uranus is in the seventh house, Venus rules that seventh house. Um, and they're both kind of being activated by this. So yeah, I would say there's definitely something very powerful showing up around a relationship that is pushing you in a new direction, and it can be disruptive. But either way, whatever direction it's pushing you into, it's pushing you towards the journey and direction that you're meant to go in because it's that north node. And that solar eclipse is squaring Uranus. So there definitely could be some tensions around a relationship at this time, or something you're having to navigate. And then we have Mercury, which is in pre-shadow, also in that fifth house, forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde in your ninth house of higher education, higher knowledge, long distance travel, and philosophy and your belief systems. And so you could be, this could be like, I think it could be like some internal growth or internal wisdom being gained here, like something just clicks or you develop some type of clarity, but you will be revisiting it because Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 25th and connect to Jupiter two more times. So, whatever is showing up with this alignment, you will be revisiting that. So, also maybe, pay attention to the conversations you're having, information you're receiving, especially around children, creative projects, relationships, shared resources, and your partner's finances, and even friendships and social circles. Sagittarius, welcome to your solar eclipse forecast. You have this solar eclipse in Aquarius in your third house of your community, your neighbors, your neighborhood, your vehicles and local travel, also your self-expression and anything that is associated with speaking, reading, writing. Sagittarius, welcome to your solar eclipse forecast. You have this solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees in your third house of community, your neighbors, your neighborhood, um, local travel, vehicles, also self-expression, like anything associated with reading, speaking, writing. Also, siblings and cousins are represented in the third house. And so this area of life is being lit up by this solar eclipse. And this is the first eclipse in this new cycle of eclipses that will be in Leo and Aquarius that is really initiating us into this new change in this area of life. Now, we still have the nodes transiting Virgo and Pisces, which is in your 10th house and your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate, and your 10th house of career and public reputation. So there's been a lot of changes going on in that area of life over the last year. However, in July 26, 2026, the nodes are going to enter Leo and Aquarius and then bring significant change, major endings and major beginnings to your third and your ninth house. And this solar eclipse is what it is initiating us into this change. And whatever is showing up at this time can really give us an idea of what that 2-year change can look like. And what I've noticed from observing these transits with the nodes and the eclipses is that whatever comes in with that first initial eclipse, it really does give us an idea of what this 2-year story is going to look like. And every time we enter eclipse season, there's something more activated and there's more to that story that is coming in. So just keep that in mind. Now, also, check your natal Saturn and Uranus placements in your natal chart because that's going to bring more depth to these energies and also show you other areas of life that you can experience a little bit of change and shake up, as Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and Uranus is the modern ruler of Aquarius. And now we have Saturn newly in Aries, which is in your fifth house of children and creativity and passion, romance, hobbies, interests, and everything you do for fun is in that fifth house. And so Saturn is changing this area of life up for you and bringing more responsibility here. And if you want to dive deeper into this energy with Saturn and Neptune, I have a forecast on my YouTube channel. You can check that out where I go into past, present, future events and also get into all 12 rising signs. But that Saturn is going to be activated with this solar eclipse. And this is 3 days before we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction. So there might be something here that's activated or that shows up around children. Um, Again, creative pursuits, romantic connections, romances in the fifth house, like one-on-one partnerships, like solid relationships and marriage partners is in the seven. But I always look at the fifth for like dating because it's not really like a solid partnership, but it is romantic connections. So it could be something around that. Um, and then also too, like hobbies, maybe some hobbies that you're interested in. And, I feel like whatever is going to be changed here with Saturn, it does get activated with this. And then Uranus is at those final degrees of Taurus, which is in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine. And also pets is in the sixth house. And your work, like your daily duties at work. So your career is in the 10th, but the labor you put into your career and your daily routine at work is in the sixth. Also, employees and coworkers are represented in the sixth. And so, I mean, Uranus has been here for like 8 years. So Uranus has been moving over these degree points. So there could be a shakeup with something maybe you've been navigating already, like the last year. But the solar eclipse is squaring Uranus. And so there is tension here, there is friction. And then also Venus, which is the dispositor of Uranus and Taurus, is going to form in conjunction to the North Node a couple hours after the solar eclipse, which is in your fourth house. And so there could be something very significant showing up around something you've already been navigating the last year, or it could be something brand new, very sudden, that's coming in very fast, very powerful, that is possibly very disruptive with this energy. Because one thing we're going to have to get used to is the fact that this is a very quick, fast, disruptive, unpredictable time that we're in. And over the next 2 years, we are going to have to get used to being okay with change and being okay with just going with the flow because we are in this time where there is no buildup to the change that is around the corner. It is just happening. The doors are just flying open or flying shut. And also keep in mind that this is going to be the one and only eclipse in this cycle of eclipses with Aquarius, where we have Uranus and Taurus, which is at least giving us the ability to stay a bit grounded and hold on to that stability a little bit with Taurus. Once Uranus enters Gemini, it speeds up even faster. The chaos comes in even quicker. So we do also want to keep that in mind as well. But just remember that whatever change is showing up at this time, it's to liberate us. It's to shake us out of our comfort zone so that we can grow and become this more authentic version of self and, move in this direction. And this could even activate, things that you've wanted to do for life for ages and you just haven't for whatever reason. Maybe uh fear of like acceptance or because that's a lot of this energy too, I think. But the like even looking out in collective energies, like we'll see out in the world a lot of more people. Oh my gosh, I can't speak, it's the Mercury in Pisces. A lot more people not being so afraid to necessarily follow society standards or fit inside that box. We will see more people standing up for, rights and freedoms and more people going on their own, being their more authentic version of self and not caring if they're accepted, not caring if they are seeking others' approval, and that is a lot of this energy here. And for you, it could have to do with maybe your community, maybe siblings, maybe it's something you've navigated where, you're with neighbors or your neighborhood or, something along those lines, or maybe even too, because the third house has to do with like reading, speaking, writing. And maybe if that's something you've wanted to do, you may finally end up moving in that direction, like maybe creating that podcast, writing that blog, creating that story. This is very much this energy of breaking free from the restraints that society has put us on and finally moving into this authentic path. Now, we also have Mercury here at 16 degrees, forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde, which is in your eighth house of your partner's finances and money coming in from outside resources like taxes, inheritance, debt, loans. The eighth house also rules psychological healing and transformation. So this can look like some positive energy here around like home, of family, like maybe a family member, but Mercury also rules that seventh house of relationships and one-on-one connections. So it could be like I would even say like a marriage partner or a solid relationship. There's something really positive showing up, like maybe with them and their resources and being able to help you with something because Jupiter's in that eighth house of like shared resources and your partner's finances, and then Mercury rules that seventh house. So I'm sure for some of you, it will be like maybe, wanting to start something or move in a certain direction, whether it has to do with your home or your family, or again, those third house themes and topics, and maybe your partner steps in, or maybe your business partner steps in, or a really solid one-on-one connection steps in and like helps you out in some way. But whatever is initiated here and shows up with this Mercury Jupiter energy, we will be revisiting this down the road because Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 25th of February and will connect to Jupiter two more times. So also pay attention to what is activated there. Around maybe partners, finances, or relationships, or even Mercury rules that 10th house of career. Um, and then, yeah, shared resources or money coming in from outside resources because you will be revisiting that. But this is something that can be coming in very powerfully, whether it has to do with something you've already been navigating the last year around home, family, property, or real estate, or even your health, work, daily routine, your routine at work, or a pet, because of that Venus North Node conjunction. Which is happening a few hours after the solar eclipse. And then, Venus dispositing that Aquarius energy, which is what makes me feel like it is something that's very sudden and maybe out of the blue. And then the solar eclipse is squaring, Uranus. And so there is a breakthrough here, and it's not going to be an easy breakthrough necessarily, but it's going to shake us out of complacency. It's going to put us on a new path, and it may be difficult at first, but I think at the end of all of this in 2 years, we are going to be happy with where we're at. Capricorn, you have the solar eclipse in Aquarius in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions. So you have the lunar nodes about to enter your money houses. And now this is not going to happen until July 26, 2026. And then the lunar nodes will be in Leo and Aquarius until March 26, 2028. However, this solar eclipse we're having in Aquarius is initiating us into this cycle of eclipses and the change that's going to be taking place here. So we definitely want to pay attention to what is showing up at this time, especially around your money and your finances. You also want to know where you have your natal Saturn and Uranus placement because it's going to bring more depth to the energies and also show you other areas of life that can have a bit of a shakeup here with over the next 2 years. But Saturn is newly in Aries, which is in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. And that Saturn is going to be activated because Saturn is the traditional ruler of Aquarius and Uranus is the modern ruler. And so, whatever Saturn is going to change in this area of life, it definitely can be activated here. And this is 3 days before we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction. And if you want to dive deeper into that energy, I do have a forecast on my channel. You can check that out. But we have Uranus here in Taurus in your fifth house of children and creativity and passion, romance, hobbies, interests. And Uranus is getting ready to enter Gemini April 25th, 2026, and we'll be there till May 2033. So this is going to be the last eclipse we have in Aquarius out of this cycle of eclipses that we have Uranus in Taurus, which Taurus helps us stay grounded and brings a bit of stability to this energy. Once Uranus enters Gemini, we're talking about quick, disruptive, unpredictable change. This is not about building up to what is coming. It's knocking at your door like yesterday. And that's one thing I think we will all have to adapt to is the fact that we are in this time of major change, major unpredictability, major disruption. And the more open to the change we are, the more smoother it can be with resistance. We then create more friction and challenge. So keep that in mind, Capricorn, because we are in this period of a massive change. And for you, it can be in that, have to do with your finances, taking new financial ventures, new avenues of making finances, opening and closing doors. This energy, these eclipses bring in major endings and major beginnings. Now, the solar eclipse is squaring that Uranus energy, which is also indicating it could be something very disruptive, and maybe it's that you have to pay for something for a child that's very kind of out of the blue, Venus is here in your third house of your local community and your neighbors and neighborhood, and also self-expression like reading, speaking, writing, vehicles. Venus is dispositing that Uranus energy, and Venus is going to connect to the North Node a couple hours after the solar eclipse. And so that also shows that there is something very sudden, very powerful coming in that is like throwing us into this new direction. Being in your third house, it could have to do with a neighbor, it could have to do with something with your community, it could have to do with a vehicle, it could have to do with something around local travel, or again, self-expression, your mindset, or a sibling and cousin, because those are all those third house themes and topics. And then we also have Mercury here at 16 degrees, forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde in your seventh house of relationships and one-on-one connections and marriage partner. And now, whatever is activated here, we will be revisiting this two more times because Mercury is going to station retrograde on the 25th of February and then connect to Jupiter two more times. So, whatever is showing up here, you will be revisiting that. Mercury rules your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine, and your ninth house of long distance travel, philosophy, your belief systems, higher education. Um, so there could be something too that is maybe showing up around that, but it's a trine. So it's almost like there's something like support. There's some type of support coming in or like insight. With the Jupiter retrograde, this could even be like some internal wisdom gained or internal growth of some kind. However, with this whole 2 year cycle of change, we are going to have to get used to the unpredictability, used to being uncomfortable. This energy is to push us into a path that is more where we can be our most authentic version of self. That is what this energy is creating is disruption to shake us out of complacency so that we can have that personal growth and evolution in our own way, however that shows up for us and however it's activating our charts and wherever in our life we are just almost I don't even know if I want to say too scared to try something new, but where we need to grow, you know? So the more we're open to the change, the more smoother this can be for sure. Okay, guys, welcome to your solar eclipse forecast. You have this solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees in your first house. And so this entire month is huge for you, Aquarius, because you are about to enter this brand new cycle of you, the self, and changes in this new direction you're moving into, and your one-on-one partnerships, your one-on-one connections, your business partner, marriage partner, and how you connect within partnerships is all up for change with the lunar nodes entering your first and your seventh house, which the lunar nodes officially enter Leo and Aquarius July 26, 2026, and will be there until March 26, 2028. But this is the initial solar eclipse that is throwing us into this change that we're going to be in for the next 2 years. So we want to pay attention this entire month. What is showing up when it has to do with you and your one-on-one connections. Now, you also want to check to see where you have your natal Saturn and Uranus placement in your natal chart, because that's going to bring more depth to the change and energy you'll be navigating and also show other areas of life that can be activated through these eclipses over the next 2 years. Now, Saturn is newly in Aries, which is in your third house of community, neighbors, neighborhood, local travel, vehicles, siblings, cousins, self expression, anything associated with reading, speaking, writing, all activated here. And the Saturn Neptune conjunction happens 3 days after this solar eclipse. And so there definitely is something activated in this area of life, I think, with the solar eclipse for sure. Um, it doesn't necessarily is like bad or good, but I think that whatever change is going to be brought up for you is activated here. And then Uranus is at those end degrees of Taurus in your fourth house of home, family, property, and real estate. And we want to keep in mind that Uranus is entering Gemini April 25th, 2026, and is going to be there till May 2033. This is going to be the first and only eclipse we have in Aquarius out of this cycle where Uranus is in Taurus. And so Taurus is that grounded, stable energy. So at least it's kind of giving us this ability to stay a bit grounded and have this ability to have stability out of all this chaos. Once Uranus enters Gemini, this energy moves quick, fast. Change is going to be, coming in quick, very unpredictable, very disruptive. This is not a buildup. This is doors flying open. This is no knocking at the door. And that's something we're going to have to adjust to and get used to over the next few years. Um, Learning to be open to change. And usually Aquarius, like, unless you have a lot of like fixed sign, and I mean, uh, even though Aquarius is one of the fixed signs, I find you guys tend to be a bit more open to the change than, let's say, some of the other fixed signs. But, we have to remember that whatever's activated here for us is shaking us out of our comfort zone and throwing us into a new path where we can be more authentic. And this is about two, we're going to see in the collective more people not needing this need for approval or acceptance and not having this fear to really take a path that is more authentically them. And that is your journey, Aquarius, over the next couple of years. You may completely shift who you're connected to and this path that you're navigating through life when it has to do with maybe fears around acceptance and approval and not feeling like you need to fit in a box. Now, the solar eclipse is forming a square to Uranus, which can show that there could be very sudden disruption or tension or unpredictability here around maybe you. It is in that fourth house of home, family, property, real estate, but also too, because Taurus is ruled by Venus. And so Venus is in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions. And a couple hours after the solar eclipse, Venus is going to form a conjunction to the North Node. Now, whatever you've been navigating with the North Node here, around money and finances and personal values and even self-worth. There could be a trigger here. There could be an activation of that, or this could even to be because it's that Uranus energy, something just completely out of the blue, shocking and disruptive that's changing your course of direction in some way. Um, it is energy we want to just be mindful, aware, and again, the more open to the change we are, and just having this kind of go with the flow vibe, the less resistance, the better, the more smoother this transition is going to be. And just keep that in mind over the next 2 years. And again, it could even just, something could even just come up at this time where you're foreseeing like this 2 year journey or these changes that need to be made. Because again, like this is the first initial eclipse, right? And it's going to have to do with like this new direction you're moving into around partnerships and just navigating life, like completely taking a new path and literally changing who you are to the core in some way. Like even your values too, because it's in that second house. And then also Mercury is here. Mercury's in pre-shadow at this point because we're going to have a Mercury retrograde February 25th. Mercury's forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde in your sixth house of work, health, and daily routine. But this is a nice, like easy flowing energy. Mercury rules your fifth house of children and creativity and passion and romance and hobbies and interests. And then your eighth house of your partner's finances, and shared resources. Also, psychological healing and transformation is in that eighth house. So it could be something around your finances showing up quite disruptively, but you're able to get like some support in some way. But whatever this trine is activating, we will be revisiting this 2 more times throughout the Mercury retrograde period. So also keep that in mind as well. Again, it could be like maybe a close person to you is stepping in financially to like help you out with something or support you with something. Yeah, I mean, that's one way that it could show up. Aquarius, you are in for like a brand new self-discovery journey, and I love this for you. Pisces, welcome to your solar eclipse forecast. You have this solar eclipse in Aquarius at 28 degrees in your 12th house. Things, people, places that are hidden, hospitals, asylums, retreat centers. This is the house of karma. This is the house of self-undoing and self-sabotaging. This is the house of what is going on behind the scenes in isolation and what you're doing in solitude. And so you're about to kind of enter this era of like working more behind the scenes and on your own and not so much out in public because the North Node is going to be entering that 12th house and you've had the North Node in your first house. So you've already been going through this massive change when it has to do with you and your partnerships and how you connect within relationships and really moving into this new path. And we are still going to be in that change until really the beginning of 2027. But the nodes officially enter Leo and Aquarius July 26, 2026, and we'll be there until March 26, 2028. So we begin this cycle of change in this new area of life as we're kind of completing this cycle of change in the Virgo Pisces area of life. Now, again, there's something here that is activated around what you're doing behind the scenes, or maybe you work in a hospital, or maybe you work in a jail or something. And this is also the house of spirituality. Maybe you form more of a spiritual practice here. But this is we want to pay attention to what is activated this month because this is going to give us an idea of what that 2 year story is going to look like. Now, you also want to check to see where you have your natal Saturn and Uranus placement in your natal chart. That's going to bring more depth to the energies and also show you other areas of life that can be activated by this cycle of eclipses over the next 2 years. Now we have Saturn newly in Aries in your second house of money, finances, and material possessions, which will be activated by this solar eclipse. And then we have the Saturn Neptune conjunction 3 days after this solar eclipse. And so, if you want to dive deep into the Saturn Neptune transit, definitely check out the forecast I have on my YouTube channel. But there's going to be, either more responsibility with your money and your finances, more limitation around money and finances, maybe yeah, I mean, Saturn is a mixed bag. Like Saturn is that planet of responsibility and limitation and challenge and hardship and dedication and structure. And so Saturn brings that to this area of life. And for you, it is your money and your finances and material possessions. So there might be something activated there with the solar eclipse. Now, Uranus is the modern ruler, and Uranus is still in Taurus in your third house of community and neighbors and neighborhood and local travel and vehicles and siblings and cousins and self-expression and anything associated with reading, speaking, writing. There's so much packed in that third house. However, this is going to be the one and only eclipse we have in Aquarius where Uranus is in Taurus because we have Uranus entering Gemini April 25th, 2026, and is going to be in Gemini until May 2033. And so at least the Taurus influence is creating more stability and allowing us to stay a little bit more grounded in this midst of chaos and disruption and unpredictability. Once Uranus enters Gemini, we're talking about quick, fast moving change. Like there is no buildup to the change that is coming over the next 2 years. And that is one thing with this energy that we are all going to have to learn to adapt to is that we have to be open to change, open to the unpredictability of chaos and disruption, and that there is not going to be no buildup. Nobody's going to be knocking at any doors. Doors are going to be either flying open or flying closed in certain areas of life. And as long as we can try to adapt to that and go with the flow, we can navigate the change a lot more smoother. So keep that in mind. Now, Uranus is being dispositive by Venus, which is in your first house and actually going to form a conjunction to the North Node a couple hours after the solar eclipse. So there is possibly like a really sudden direction that you're navigating or moving into. Um, yeah, like around this eclipse date, like this month. Now, whether this is something you've already been navigating since the node transit, like the last year, but because it's that Uranus energy, I feel like it's something like kind of just sudden that you're like pushed into, or that just happens. So yeah, definitely be mindful of that. Either way, it is a very fated karmic direction that you are meant to move into because it's that North Node, right? Now, Venus also rules your eighth house of shared resources, your partner's finances, and money coming in from outside resources like taxes and debt and loans and inheritance and all of that type of stuff. And then also psychological healing and transformation. So it can be activating, that area of life as well. And then we also have Mercury forming a trine to Jupiter retrograde retrograde, which is in your fifth house of children and creativity and passion, romance, hobbies, interests. So now whatever is, and this is a trine. So this is like some type of support, guidance, or clarity. But Mercury will be connecting to Jupiter two more times because Mercury is going to be stationing retrograde on the 25th of February in Pisces. So there is going to be something that you are revisiting and reevaluating, um, you know, into really, I mean, whatever is kind of showing up this month, you will be in that energy and navigating that until we get into April. So also keep that in mind. But Pisces, one thing with that I want you to know with this energy is, you have Aquarius in the 12th house. And so this can activate more desire to do things behind the scenes, maybe not to be so social or um, develop more of a spiritual practice. This is where you may bring something like meditation or a spiritual practice into your day-to-day life because it is that sixth and 12th house axis. But whatever is showing up at this time throughout the month of February, whatever is activated with the solar eclipse, that's going to give you an idea of what you will be navigating for the next 2 years.